Welcome to the Wise Dome podcast, a series that is so much more than just a podcast series. This is a movement towards a lifestyle you know you deserve. It's all about the ease of inspiring and sharing your knowledge and experiences online. I'm your host, Nikki, and I have always admired those who share their wisdom, those who have decided to inspire others. Just like my guests, I found my version of inspiring others by sharing my wisdom and created a lifestyle I wanted, and I'm going to share all the secrets for how you can too. On this show, you'll find inspiration, motivation, and advice from experts, as well as valuable tips on how to get started or improve your business. Let's dive into how you can begin and grow your wisdom business. Remember, inspiring others looks different for everyone. How will you inspire? Hi, and welcome to the Wise Dome podcast. And today we're very lucky to chat to David Richards. David has transmuted trauma experienced in childhood to today, using those experiences as a bridge to help people overcome life circumstances and self-limiting beliefs so they can rewrite their story through the lens of abundance and love. How does David do this? Well, David is an intuitive leadership coach, education reformer, and mindfulness teacher. David is an expert in teaching, learning, and running successful online programs. David, welcome to the Wise Dome podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Lovely. Now, let's tell our audience how you started.
Yeah, I love that question. And, I actually kind of did like a career transition, moving into this space where I was working in education for several years. And one thing I wanted people to hear is that whatever skills you have and whatever places you've been can be used wherever you go. So I had this story like, I've worked in schools my whole life, most of my life. I did business kind of before education, but like for most of my career, it was all education. Yeah. And that's a very different world than online courses and marketing and sales and for-profit. It's just a very different world. So I kind of had this story like, you don't really know what you're doing. And, sometimes you have to talk to your friends and they'll be like, are you crazy? Because you opened 10 charter schools in 10 years in California and all those skills are transferable. Like you had to convince parents to enroll their children in a school, which is their most precious asset. So I think you can convince somebody to spend $97 on an online course. So the way I got started was creating a lot of suffering by thinking that I wasn't good enough and that I didn't have the right skill set, because we all do this to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. And imposter syndrome, as we call it.
Imposter syndrome, yep. But I did feel like I did learn from starting charter schools that we had spent a lot of time working. I started charter schools in Silicon Valley. So I had experience working with a lean startup, which is startup methodology. Just do what they call a minimally viable product, an MVP. You do something, you get it out there, and you test it, and you test it, and you try, and trial and error. So I kind of knew that, and I tried to overcome the story of, you don't have enough experience, and I just started doing it. And so first thing I did was get people together on Zoom groups. I literally just started adding a bunch of people to my Facebook. Yep. I had 300 Facebook friends, and I thought, I'll start playing the video game with this Facebook algorithm and seeing if I could get more Facebook friends. And I'll just start there, because if I do a company page, people are going to think I'm trying to sell something. So I just started adding Facebook friends. And in like 3 months, I had 3,000 Facebook friends all over the world. And it was like, I have 20 friends in common. Now I have 100. Now I have 200. Let's just keep friending all these people. And then I just started inviting people to Facebook, to Zoom, like a Zoom group during COVID. It was like, we're all stuck in our house. So why don't we get together on Zoom? And there was no charge. There wasn't really an agenda. It was just kind of following the next step. Like, okay, let's get people together. Let's have conversations. And then from there, I started a Facebook group. And like you, I love just to have conversations. So I was like, do you want to be interviewed on my Facebook group? Like maybe you're a new coach, or maybe you're starting something new and you just want to talk about it. So then I had 50 people in 2 months just come on.
Wow.
No, I didn't worry about, do I use Libsyn or do I use this microphone or that microphone? I literally just opened my computer, Facebook group. I'm very low tech, but I can start a Facebook group. And in fact, that even overwhelmed me. And I had to have my friend help me do it. But I just started doing Facebook conversations, and I didn't edit it. I didn't care who was listening. I was just like, this is bias towards action, one foot in front of the other. try it out, build your skill set. Again, as an educator, we're all about growth mindset. Like you can learn anything. So I just did that.
That's fantastic to hear. And knowing that took that mindset of one step, next step, next step. It's fantastic to know you'd start just with the simplicity. Keep it simple.
Yes.
Especially when you're testing and trialing something, your MVP is the most important thing. And that's where you're going to gain all the feedback and know how to grow. And I think that's one thing that is fantastic to hear, that you actually took that initiative to really listen to your audience. Because some people, they might go into this area and think, okay, this is what I want to share. And then they start sharing, but they forget that portion, or they delay that portion of feedback. And feedback is very important, obviously, at every point in growing your business. So with respect to that, so you started doing your Zoom calls, the Zoom, group chats and everything like that. When did it actually transition into something that was more structured and so forth?
You introduced me as an intuitive leadership coach. So I have to share that a lot of this was very intuitive, and it's helpful when you have the background of lean startup and you're very intuitive, because the two go hand in hand. It's like, okay, well, let's just play with intuition and use some of the structures of lean startup. What I did was I actually met a friend of mine that I had met in like an online course. I connected with a friend I had met 3 years prior. And we just were kind of just connecting during COVID. There was no reason. I didn't know why we were connecting. I kind of knew her online, but I didn't know her. We started boxering. And we did that for like 3 or 4 months during COVID. And then I realized that I don't actually even remember how it all happened, but somehow we decided, why don't we just try and do a little like course or something? And because we were so aligned and we felt like, oh, this is really the time to help serve people and do online courses. So I used my 3,000 Facebook, friend platform. And I just started inviting people to a 4-week Tuesday evening course with my new friend, Stacy. And I was like, and we would just go live. And we just invited people to come and do a free course. And we said, basically, we just want to hold the space. We want to build community during COVID and during the lockdowns. We want to share some things we've learned about this journey called life. We literally had like 50 people there for 4 weeks in a row. I started talking to people in the industry and they're like, you got 50 people to show up to a live event? And they're like, what did you do? Did you use this formula or that formula? No, we authentically, intuition and authenticity. We reached out. I know how to get people to show up because I've run schools like parent events and that kind of thing. So again, transferred the skill. I know that it's about relationships. I know it's about being authentic and believing in what you're telling them to do. Again, I wasn't selling anything, but believing in what you're selling. But I didn't have an end game like, oh, I'm going to go from, because what I notice is when you have too much of an end game and you're following the formula too much, people can sniff that out. So we didn't have the end game like, okay, follow the formula, you do 4 weeks for free and then you charge them 5,000. We didn't do that. We just said, we ended up in that spot by accident. But we just said, let's get people together for 4 weeks in a row. Let's hold the space and be the most authentic version of ourselves. 50 people. Oh, I was going to say, we basically connected authentically with you. So I did Facebook messages, voice messages. Hey, how are you? It was really great. Again, it wasn't, I just really want
wasn't scripted.
It wasn't scripted. It wasn't a formula, because I've heard people say, oh, do your Facebook hustle where like every day you send 10-minute messages to people. No. Oh. They know that that's a bunch of baloney. So I just said, hey, you're a good friend. I'm connected to your energy. I feel like we're kind of aligned, and we're getting people together during COVID, Tuesday, 6 p.m. time, Pacific. Like, be there or be square. Any questions, let me know. No cost, no, nothing. Just be there. And that's how we got 50 people to show up. And then from there, we listened to the feedback. We didn't even ask for feedback, which is another interesting part of the story.
Right.
But we got it left, right, and center.
Right.
Because you're getting feedback all the time. We had people sharing feedback like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Or we had people coming back, which is also feedback. Like we had people really engaged. That's feedback. We had people doing a bunch of comments in the chat. That's feedback. So we just took it all in. And then we just kind of said, hey, I think we should build a program out of it. And then we built a high ticket mastermind for $3,000. Took the 50 into 12 and put them in the group. And now we've had this program for like a year and a half.
That's fantastic. With regards to, like you mentioned, you got feedback just out of, without even asking for feedback.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because when you think about feedback comes from someone's going to give you feedback if they have trust that you're going to acknowledge that feedback.
Yes.
I feel anyway, like if someone asks me for feedback, well, I'm only going to give it if I think you really are going to acknowledge what I'm saying to you. So the fact that you built that relationship means a lot, I think, because talking to your audience and finding out just through general discussions and connections and building that trust, that's an amazing step to, well, it's not even really a step, is it? It's just like with intuition, it's just
being
an evolution.
Human. Yeah.
It's an evolution in friendship, isn't it? It's
yes,
like as
exactly.
soon as you open up the conversation, people start opening up to you. And that is a really good way to look at it. There's no generic sort of formula, really.
Yes.
I really don't believe there is. It's just like,
yes.
I've said this before to someone that, it's like you're dating.
Yes.
I love that. True, transparency and honesty in your conversations is really great. So you went into that process of creating your sessions and creating that into sort of giving it a title as a course, and people, advising them what they could walk away with in that course. Were there any major lessons within that process of delivering your course, or actually the structuring of it, that you may have changed over time from what you heard from people?
Actually, as you were talking, I realized the major lesson that I had before I got to this course.
Yep.
So I'm going to answer that part of the question, because I think that's where all the lessons were. Because honestly, in the question you just asked, we haven't changed that much, pretty much stayed the same. It's been the same price. It's the same kind of cadence. Like everything's stayed very similar. But again, I think that's because it was just like so intuitive, and it wasn't like, it didn't come from the outside in. It just came from the inside out. Mm-hmm. Like it was all just intuitive inside out. However, before I got to that, for a couple years, I had a lot more struggles because I was going from the outside, trying to create something from the outside that wasn't aligned with my authenticity. And I think that's the part I want people to hear, is that I learned a lot. So for example, when I left my school that I was running, I was like, okay, I kind of went back to part-time at the school, and I was trying to do the typical side hustle. Like, can I get this business on the side to make more money for me than my salary at the school? It didn't work. It took me 2 years, and I was still not making any money from the business, more or less. And really, I think that was because I didn't have clarity about what I wanted to do. Right. And you don't get clarity without just trying. In some ways, I'm saying this didn't work, but it actually did work because it's all part of the process. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an educational consultant, a life coach, a leadership coach, an education coach. Like I wasn't sure on what I wanted to do, but I just knew that I wanted to do something kind of in this space. That whole figuring out process was like really key to my journey. If I'd been too set on one thing or the other, then I wouldn't have figured out what I want, which is what I figured out today. The biggest lesson for me was I figured out very quickly what I didn't want to be or do by just trying it. So for example, this is a funny one I always tell people. Whenever I do life coaching clients, because now I do life coaching, educational leadership coaching, and also other education programs. So I kind of merged everything.
All of them. Yeah.
But the center is intuitive leadership. So it's like really getting to know the inside of yourself, like the wisdom within you. If you're an educator, I got a program for you. If you're more of like a spiritual seeker, I got a program for you. And if you're, work in an organization as a leader, then I have a program for you. So there's kind of like these different pathways. And it took me a while to get to those pathways. But I wanted to share the funny things. Like I learned that if a woman recommends her husband to be coached by you, it's not a good idea for me. So I had 3 clients in a row that like my female friends were like, oh, my husband really needs a life coach. And I was like, great. They're like, I'll pay for it and everything. And then I was literally the most ineffective life coach ever because they didn't want to coach.
They don't want to be coached. They're not going to be coached.
They didn't want to be coached. So you're not getting anywhere. If someone who doesn't want to, if they're like, no. They're acting like they're into it, but they're folding their arms and they're like, when am I doing this over? So I can tell my wife, I can tell mommy that I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I learned a lot of lessons like that by doing it, again, by just doing it, putting one step forward. I learned, okay, don't coach somebody around their life unless they want to do it, which seems obvious, but when you're starting out, you'll take money from anybody sometimes, right? You're like, okay, sure. Yeah. And then I also like coached a bunch of different type of people for free. I tried to coach somebody who's opening a new school. And I just said, I'll do it for free because I just wanted to see what that was like. And I was like, you know what? That's something I enjoy doing. But then I coached superintendents of schools. And I was like, I don't really enjoy that as much. That's a little bit too stressful. And, and so I just tried different people, tried it out, and I just learned all these things about myself by trying it. Yeah. And because I had the school salary, I was able to not have to worry about the time and the money. I wasn't like, I have to get these people to pay me. So I had the time to really practice and figure out who my audience really was.
And be in the moment when you're actually trying, like there wasn't that ulterior. Yeah.
No.
That's fantastic. So when you're going through that process of, and I'm going to take it in a further step back now.
That's fine.
Going forward and backwards. But
I love it.
That moment of, I haven't asked this very often, but I really would love to know from your perspective. that moment of, you feel like that imposter.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
you're obviously going through that process of coaching for free, discovering, what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Was it that actually took you through that process of, okay, I'm not an imposter anymore, gave you that confidence? What was it that gave you that confidence to sort of say, yep, this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the husband one always sticks out for me because those were my first 3 free clients, or like I charge them almost nothing, basically free. And I really felt like a total failure.
Right.
Like I was like, oh, you're not supposed to be doing this. Like, cause I thought, oh, well, I've done all this coaching inside an organization, coach leaders and coach school principals and done all this coach teachers. But I was like, this is too big of a jump. The kind of monkey mind, the negative thoughts came in and said, like, see, now you're trying to coach people on their life and you're pretty much terrible at it. The 3 people you tried, just like, they wouldn't show up for sessions. They had bad attitudes, there was no connection. It's like, see, this is not meant for you. In a way, I had to go through that kind of like adverse experience to see that wasn't necessarily true. But then what ended up happening after those 3 is a good friend of mine just approached me. So I put up a very simple website. I had a website created by a 15-year-old. So one of my students, I'm not good with technology, but I hear nowadays that everybody can create a website. And he had told me he was starting a business and he had created websites for some other old people. So I said, will you create a website for me? davidkrichards.com. He's like, sure. So he just did a Wix template and he put it together in a week and it was really simple. One of my friends just happened to find it. I think I linked it on Facebook and he said, hey, I really need you right now. I'm having a really hard time. Well, here's the deal. I'm not doing it for free anymore. So are you willing to pay me? And he's like, sure. What's your rate? So I sent him the competitive market rate and he paid me like $1,000 and we did like 5 sessions. Then it was like, whoa, like I completely helped him. His whole entire life changed. Realized that I could do this. Having the bad experience, supposed bad experience, which actually helped me, and then having the really positive experience. And then shortly thereafter, the COVID thing happened. And then I started these other online courses where I had my friend to help me. So then I had another friend that I met, you remember, online, and it was almost like I needed that like running partner. So that when the negative stories come up, she's kind of like, are you crazy? Like, and then when she would start going into imposter syndrome, I'd be like, no, are you crazy? And we'd be able to like talk each other out of our imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That imposter syndrome just hits us all, doesn't it? Whole review and revise. So important, isn't it? You've got to go through those little challenges to discover the little gifts behind them. And obviously seeing, going through those 3 free sessions of coaching people who they don't want to be coached.
Yeah, I was like harassing them to show up to a session. And I'm thinking,
I know. And you feel like you're torn, aren't you? Especially as a coach, because you feel like, oh God, I'm supposed to be pushing them, getting them. But you can push them so far. And then there's that threshold that's out of here. No, that's good. And look, I believe in the whole universe gifts us at certain times.
Absolutely.
Obviously, someone just went, click on that website.
He needs this lesson. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. All happens in good timing. It's going to come.
Yes, it does.
How have you grown personally through all of this from where you've...
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I know as a teacher, I used to tell my students this, like whenever you teach something, that's the deepest level of learning. And they've done research studies on this. If you can teach, in my schools, we always do like group learning, collaborative learning, and everything's like learning's a social sport. It's like project-based learning. When the kids are kind of like, I'm spending all this time telling Joey this and this and that. And I'm like, sounds like you're learning the most. And they look at me like, what? No, I'm teaching him everything. This is the deepest level of learning. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes, because when you try and teach something to somebody else, you have to really know what you're talking about. And you then see where your blind spots are. So for me, being able to having to go in and like learn all of this new stuff was super inspiring. And then teaching the things that I was learning in terms of my own mindfulness journey and my own life journey, then teaching it to others, nothing gets you more open, clear. So the growth has been tremendous in terms of really, instead of just working on myself, like, 'cause there was a time where I was part-time at the school and just working on myself and doing like online courses and my own life coaching and just being like, okay, I'm going to change my whole life. And then it's like, at some point you got to go out there and start to show up somehow, some way. And so there was a moment, okay, I think more learning is going to happen now if I go out and start working with other people. And there were so many stories about one of the programs I run is called the Inner Sangha, and it's all about finding your, the authentic self. And it's like, why are you teaching that class? Like, what certification do you have? And what do what's your this and that and all these stories? I guess that's important. However, I had 50 people that were coming and I just had 12 people pay $3,000. Maybe I shouldn't worry about those stories and I should just keep showing up. And again, when you have the experience through life, like you were saying, you get the experience. People were paying me $3,000 each. That made me realize, oh, okay, a good amount of money for somebody who thinks they don't know what they're doing. So maybe you should stop saying you know what you're doing and just really enjoy this process and learn from it. So, I mean, I've just learned so much. It's never ending.
Yeah. So you've grown amazingly through, everything that you've gone through in life and translated that across and created an amazing coaching, program and everything like that. And even having that moment of connecting with someone that you didn't even think to connect with, but ended up building a business around that. What advice could you give to anyone that might be looking to start a wisdom business, sharing their wisdom business?
One of the things I teach is this connection between the feminine intuitive energy and then the masculine action energy. So really showing up. So trusting yourself. This is my number one message to everybody. Really trust your intuitive wisdom. Just trust yourself. Really, really trust it, because we're taught the opposite. Don't trust intuition and go find the research study and listen to the mom and listen to the teacher and all these reasons why you're not supposed to trust your own intuitive wisdom. Please, please, please trust your intuitive wisdom. And when you do, there's so many layers. When you trust your intuition and you follow that without a big connection to the outcome, then there's all these layers. Yeah. So for example, for me, when I started, so I had this successful program where I did that. I followed intuition. I didn't have expectations. I didn't have, I have to make $50,000 in sales by this date, and here's the outcome, and here's the formula. I didn't have that. I was like, oh, I feel like I should do Facebook group interviews. Oh, I feel like I should talk to my friend on Voxer. Oh, I feel like I should now do this. And, and then the Facebook group turned into an actual podcast that I have now called The Conscious Way Forward. It's all just that was not an outcome. I didn't plan that. And so as I just stayed in this moment of just follow the breadcrumbs, what feels good, what's intuition telling you, then there's all these surprises and all these layers, and you don't even have to worry about all these outcomes. However, you do have to act. Yeah. So what I found was when I started getting kind of the opposite energy, where it's the masculine energy is do, come on. This guy had opened 10 schools in 10 years and had nationally ranked schools. I had all the status symbols. I was the CEO, I was the founder. So I was do, come on. No, when I started doing that, then I started getting too obsessed with the outcomes. Right. And then I started pushing with the wrong energy. It was all about, again, an external something. I have to get to this goal. I have to get to this thing. And it starts becoming this it's subtle, but it's this very pushing energy versus when I would just kind of sit back and let the intuitive kind of feminine, receiving energy say, hey, I think you should reach out to this person. Oh, now you should probably do a Facebook interview. Oh, now you should do this. And it was just these little messages, and I just followed them slowly but surely. And then I turn around and I'm like, oh, 3 months ago, I had no idea I'd have a podcast, a mastermind, a new website, all these layers, and make 50 new friends and a new community. None of it was planned. Yeah. And so my advice is really trust yourself. Yeah. Please, please, please fall in love with the process. We're so obsessed with the outcome. Yeah. And we're waiting. I mean, so for a year, I had a podcast coach. I'm trying to I did have this whole outcome of starting a podcast, right? So I hired a coach because remember, I had a story. I don't know anything. I'm an educator. I'm going into the business world. I have to hire a podcast coach. And he was great. He had a good program to help you get over your fears and all that. But I spent a year with him. Poor guy. I paid him a flat fee. We spent a year together because I was taking so long. In that year, I had done 100 Facebook group interviews. Yeah. And I was literally out of the other side of my mouth saying, gosh, I'm never going to start that podcast. And people are like, aren't you doing Facebook? I'm like, but that's not a podcast.
You're pretty much doing it.
It's not on Libsyn, and it's not an iTunes podcast or whatever. It's not Apple. So, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was oh, because you were so stuck on the outcome of having the exact perfect podcast with the perfect cover art and, all the stuff you're supposed to have, that I missed all the fun and all the process of meeting 100 new people.
Exactly.
And there was no pressure. I didn't, like I said, didn't have to edit it. I didn't have to worry. It was just, hey, let's record on Zoom. And then I'll just download it to Facebook, upload to Facebook. Okay, cool. So it's like, just stay in the process, just have fun with it, enjoy the journey. I know we say these things, but people don't really listen. But I'm really, please listen. Like, it's all about the journey, not the destination.
God, that is so true. And look, coming from a mum's perspective,
Yes.
the analogies all pop into the head and everything like that. And I just put it down to the point of, like, if you've got a kid, for example, enjoy every moment, because that child is going to grow before your eyes without even recognizing it. And, spending that time enjoying them. It's the same thing with your business, enjoying those wins. And yes, there's losses. Yes, there's, barriers and all these things, the stress that you go through, but enjoy them too, because my God, they teach you a hell of a lot. And that journey is, I appreciate that bit of information there. And I'm sure our listeners will too, because when it comes down to, we all have a plan. When you start a business, you have this business plan that you have to have. And God, how many business plans have I created, and have I ever gone back to them? No, it's just an electronic dust PDF that's just sitting there. And I might go back 3 years later and reminisce, on these ideas. Exactly. But you do have to follow there's an idea of where you want to go.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not, it's
there's like a roadmap. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're allowed to go off every now and then.
Yes.
As long as you're listening, but acknowledging that message, that intuition. Because I think a lot of us hear the messages sometimes, and then we go into that process of, should I? And then we start overanalyzing. And if you really do feel it, I think, sometimes that message is repeated a few times. It's like someone trying to slap you in the universe.
It doesn't go away.
You in the face. Yeah.
Yes.
Just do it.
Absolutely. And I created a whole course that I think I messaged you. I want your listeners to have for free. It's $97, but I usually just give it to free for podcasts, but it's called Navigating Your Inner GPS. And it's the whole it's 10 short videos, and there's like journal prompts. Basically, it's teaching you step by step, with all my years as a teacher, like how to actually follow through on your intuition, how to hear it, how to listen, and then how to do something with it. And a perfect example, with a client I had today, I was trying to ask her, because she had somebody tell her, like, she had a big business decision, and she got really triggered because somebody told her that she should just look at the numbers, make a decision, and be decisive. Right. And she got really triggered. So when we were together, she shared with me that she was upset by that. And I said, like, let's just stop talking about that for a second and tell me a time when you had just like the deepest knowing, like you just knew it was true. Mm-hmm. And like nobody could tell you that you were wrong. And she's like, when I started my business 4 years ago. Exactly. So that's the advice for your listeners. This is your dream. This is what you want to do. Like, this is what you believe in. It's trusting that knowing, and then just taking the small steps. So then when she said, my business, so did you start your business because you saw a spreadsheet and you wanted to get black and white numbers to decide? And she's like, no, I started my business because it was like a feeling and a dream, and my intuition was screaming at me. So why are you going to listen to the guy who's telling you to use a spreadsheet to make one of the biggest decisions for your business ever? Yeah. That's not why and then she was like, you're right. It's really about following that intuition and know, like, it really knows the best way forward.
What's the best part? Like, you just mentioned something there, and I'd love to know, what is the best part that you love about what you do?
Oh gosh, it's working with people.
Yep.
I've always been a teacher. I've worked in banks and schools, and now this business, every career I've had, this is like number 4, it's always a different version of teaching. So if I'm working with somebody or just doing this, like a one-to-one conversation, that's why I love my podcast. Like, if I'm having a conversation, if I'm teaching somebody, I honestly don't care if I get paid. I really don't. I just do it because I pay the bills. But it's like, that's what I love to do. I love to, when I worked in elementary schools and high schools, and now I work with more adults. When that client said to me today, when I saw in her eyes that she could trust herself and that she could actually believe her intuition, and that it was like a reminder back to her essence and her highest self and her authenticity. I'm like, this is the best job in the world. Like, I love this. I could do this all day, every day. I love that. What about you? What about you?
Well, that's, I was literally about to say, it's that inspiration moment when you visually see, or just you see in the person that you're interacting with, that aha moment or that inspired moment. It just gives me tingles every single time. And when you were just mentioning then how passing that on to when you're coaching, it's just something there. It's like, this energy, I've just given that to you, and it's wonderful. And I think it's amazing when you can share that. Exactly, when you can share that moment. The portion of when you're sharing your wisdom and you're going through the process of starting a wisdom business, go through that. We don't know who we are. What are we doing? How are we going to do it? All that sort of stuff. And when it comes into fruition and that light just sort of switches on, I think that is really does all. I think every part of that is part of your intuition. And I really think listening to that message is really important. And I appreciate that advice that you've given to our listeners to just really listen to that. And I will get to the point where you'll explain what your offer is.
Oh, fine. I got excited when you asked me. So I was like, I have to tell them now.
We can see. But I do want to get to the next question. And it is to ask you, what legacy are you looking to leave, whether it be personal, business, in a year's time, lifetime?
I used to teach leadership. I mean, I still teach leadership, but I used to teach an internal leadership program in my charter school organization. And we read this poem called Ozymandias. And it's about, I can't remember the author. I don't remember enough of it, but I just remember it's like a one-pager. And it's basically about asking what your legacy is. And what we had people do when we asked this question was don't think and just answer. My answer without thinking was that people on earth would be better off. Whoever's interacted with me on earth would be better off because I was here. Like, that was my simple answer.
That's nice.
Because I'm here, people are going to be better off somehow, some way, whatever that means for them. That's my legacy.
I like that legacy.
Simple.
Keep it simple, but it means so much too.
It means
there's
so
a
much.
huge meaning behind it, and I think that's a beautiful legacy to leave.
And then, of course, I have to add a little bit to it. No, but I think what I would actually, what I would add to it is that it's this belief that every human has inherent greatness within them. There's what I call the intuitive leader within you, and so I feel like now that we are in this kind of post-COVID world and like this new world we're entering and everything's being re-examined and reimagined, and we have to like even decide what does work mean anymore and what does parenting mean. And it's like, if I can help people, my tagline is ushering in change, or finding paradigm shifters that want to usher in change. So if you're out there and you have an idea for how do I want to change the world, or how do I want to be this new co-creation in this totally new world that we're living in, then I feel like my legacy would be like, I can see just so many people that are just coming through me like the spoke in the wheel. And it's like, oh, now we have a new mental health system. Oh, now we have a new education system. So that's like my more expanded version of my legacy.
I love it.
I love that question, by the way.
Oh, good. I like to ask my guests that just without them knowing, because the same thing, I agree.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to answer it like that. Don't have to give too much thought into it. Question I would like to ask you, though, when you touched on difference between, well, not difference necessarily, but the transition from teaching kids and transferring information across to kids, then to adults.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit of advice, just a quick, short little advice on what you might, for our listeners to grasp? Is there a difference? Is there things to look out for? Just
adults are more difficult. No, in all seriousness, and the reason I say that jokingly, but the serious answer is when children are so open to receiving because they haven't been as conditioned, and the layers of the onion aren't like 4,000 layers deep, whereas adults are like more guarded and more, they're worried about, they've just been burned so many times. Every adult, we've all been burned by something by the time we hit, 30, 40, whatever. So what I found with adults is like, I feel much more gentle, it's all about safety. It's really about, you'd think it'd be harder to like teach something to a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old, but it's actually incredibly more difficult to teach an adult for the reasons that I said. So I really feel like knowing your audience, knowing your adult, and knowing that most adults are running their life on an inner child program, meaning that there's like this really free-spirited inner child, and then there's the wounded inner child. And if they're coming to you with the wounded inner child, they're not going to learn much from you unless you create psychological safety and build the relationship of trust like you were talking about. And then if you can build that with them, then you can access the divine, free-spirited inner child that's ready to dance and play. And it's like, they'll learn anything. That's like a 7-year-old. Like a 7-year-old's a sponge. So if you can get through all the layers of the adult conditioning, then you can create magic with adults. It's just a little more work.
That is really good advice. I like that. That's helped me too.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, this is helping me too, talking to you.
Well, summarizing it that way, it's actually very good to hear. There's layers that we all keep adding on each year.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever, after each, situation that comes along.
It's exhausting to be an adult. Exactly.
Like I said, it's like dating, Hey.
Exactly. It's so true.
So let's get back to the offer that,
yes.
You want to share with our audience today. Go right ahead and explain it to everybody.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, in terms of this conversation around the process, I wanted to get really clear on what I keep thinking of as my thesis statement. I think I'm a high school teacher, but it wants to come through me in one sentence that just brings everything together, right? Because people tell you, oh, build your signature program and all that. And it's like I said, my legacy, it's to help people trust and access their intuition and trust themselves. When I was working with a coach and he was helping me get clear on this, I'm like, oh, I'm going to create a program that breaks down all the things I've learned about intuition over the last, however, I'm 46, so a long time. And basically I used all the lessons and teaching and learning theory that I knew and created an online course about how do you know what is it, very nuts and bolts, how do you listen to your intuition? What does it feel like for you? How do you find silence? How do you find stillness? And then what do you do with small decisions? How do you practice the growth mindset? So if there's a small decision that you just feel something to be true, start there. Just like I would teach a kid, if you're trying to learn how to do some skill, I'd be teaching a kid. It's well, start with the small things and then build it up in these incremental parts. Through the course, they go through what are the small little things. I'm practice for a week. Just practice a small thing, call a friend or turn left instead of right, whatever it may be, draw and use your right hand instead of your left hand, whatever you're feeling intuitively. Just try all these small stakes, low stakes. Nothing's going to really. And then we start getting into, okay, what's a truth that's trying to come through you that you've been maybe ignoring for a while? And talk about starting your own wisdom business. People listening, there's a truth that's we've been wanting to do this for a while. Towards the second half of the course, we're starting to ask, okay, now what are the breadcrumbs to truth that to be true? But for whatever reason, because of the onion, because of the conditioning, because of the fear, because of the wounded inner child, you're not acting on because you've been dating for so long that you are scared that if you go get another relationship, it's going to fall apart. So you just stay single or stay, in a bad relationship. So then by the end, it's really practicing all these things, putting it all together, trying to find some kernel of truth about how you want to live the best version of your life. And I offer it free for your listeners. Yeah.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that. And I'll probably be hopping onto that as well myself. So.
No, that's cool. And I honestly, it's still, I've only had it for a few months and in a couple of months, I'll start charging. But again, to the lean startup, get it out there, test it. And so, people are benefiting to get it for free now. In a couple of months, it will be free. So that worked.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all the details, all the links and everything like that in our summary of the podcast where everyone can have a squizzy and link in and subscribe and do whatever is needed to actually get onto that free course, which sounds amazing. You've been fabulous to chat to today, David. I really appreciate your
Likewise.
time. It's been wonderful learning about your journey and how you inspire people and just the way you've guided them. It's really, really inspiring. And I really have enjoyed our chat. So everybody out there, like I said, the details and everything to the offer will be in our podcast summary below. Be sure to click on the link and don't forget to subscribe to the Wise Dome podcast. Thanks again, David.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Wise Dome podcast. If you enjoyed and have been inspired by this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, do subscribe and please share it with others. Post about us on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, Nikki Kelly, you can follow me on Instagram at Wise Dome Podcast, WISEDOME podcast. I'm Nikki Kelly. Thanks again, and we'll catch up next time.